Sirens are wailing in my backyard, and there's a woman in a sun visor shrieking like she's on a bad reality show, standing right there on my footbridge, screaming, "Tear it down. It's non-compliant." Now, I'm just standing on the porch, half awake, watching this chainsaw scene play out like some weird HOA fever dream. Then, suddenly, chainsaw off, everything goes quiet. The fire captain steps in and says, "All business, step away from the bridge, ma'am. FEMA designated this structure emergency access. You touch it, you're obstructing disaster operations." And I swear, you could see the exact moment Ella Pritchard, head honcho of the Cedar Quay HOA, short-circuited. She looks from the placard to me, like I somehow forged a federal agency out of plywood and stubbornness. There's confusion, then anger, then total disbelief, all flashing across her face in about 3 seconds. So who am I? I'm Marcus Bell, just a guy who moved here because I wanted frogs and quiet nights. Not endless HOA drama. I fix things with YouTube tutorials, I keep to myself, and this little creekside house was supposed to be my peaceful slice of the world. The yard slopes down into a drainage channel that threads behind our houses, carrying all the neighborhood runoff. I built a solid little bridge with proper lumber, steel brackets, the works, something so I could wheel yard debris out. And if the creek ever flooded, help get my elderly neighbor to safety. I did my homework, checked with the county, double-checked the codes, the whole 9 yards. I built that bridge right. But peace doesn't last long with Ella in charge. See, Ella Pritchard is the HOA president, and policing neighborhood visual harmony is, like, her sport. She knows the bylaws front to back and has binoculars trained on the street more than half the day. If your mailbox is a 1/4 inch too high or you dare paint your front door a slightly rebellious shade of taupe, Ella is on it. She's been running the show for 7 years. Most people just let her do her thing, but not me, apparently. It starts off with a note taped to my door, official HOA letterhead, bold print, scolding me for the bridge's rustic audacity, whatever that's supposed to mean. Then come the emails, CC to 8 different committees. Unapproved leisure installation, visible from the green belt, community mood hazard. You'd think I'd built a nightclub, not a footbridge. I reply, polite, factual, attach county approval. She responds with a sunrise photo series, like she's catching me committing architectural crimes at dawn. The angles make my bridge look positively menacing. Her final warning is a demand for removal by noon, in the name of safety and brand integrity. I have to laugh. Next morning, there she is, measuring my handrails with a quilting ruler, clipboard-wielding neighbor in tow, both of them whispering like they're uncovering a conspiracy. When I remind her the county floodplain coordinator signed off on it, Ella just waves me away. "We don't recognize outside jurisdictions," she says, like she's got sovereign citizen status. And that's when I realize she actually believes the HOA outranks the county, the state, maybe even the feds. Her emails get more frequent. Now it's structural integrity, aesthetic violations, friendly offers to waive penalties if I'll just tear it down myself. Each time I decline, she seems more determined. She escalates, shows up with an independent structural engineer who turns out to be her brother-in-law, who once built a doghouse. He pokes the bridge, frowns, and leaves. Hours later, a summer storm dumps 6 inches of rain. The drainage channel becomes a river. Fire and rescue roll in, checking houses, hauling sandbags, trying to keep the playground from flooding. And you know what? They use my bridge. The fire captain spots it right away. Only safe crossing. In this stretch, they radio in, add it to the county's emergency ops. By morning, a FEMA contractor shows up, tags my bridge as emergency egress, zip ties a weatherproof placard to the rail. Suddenly, my footbridge is official disaster infrastructure. There's a sticker with federal seals and everything. The guy takes photos, jots down GPS, adds it to the database. Sun comes out. Everything sparkles. I think maybe, just maybe, we're done. Wrong. Elaine returns with 2 landscapers and a handyman lugging a chainsaw, marching like Patton crossing the Rhine. She points at my bridge, barking, "Cut it down." All of it. The handyman glances at the FEMA placard, hesitates. Elaine tells him it's fake. That's not real. Then, she whips out her phone, calls 911. "There's a dangerous, illegal structure threatening community safety," she announces. Dispatcher asks, Is anyone hurt? Elaine says no, but insists it's an emergency because, you guessed it, HOA bylaws. Police show up. So does the fire captain. Elaine is now physically straddling my bridge, yelling for the officer to arrest me for federal fraud. The captain radios in, confirms. Everything's legit, reads the disaster declaration out loud for everyone. Now here's where it gets wild. The county floodplain coordinator rolls up, flanked by a FEMA guy and an audience of neighbors. He unrolls a big map across his truck, taps my property, circles critical access node, temporary. Removing it, he explains, would take federal approval. The young cop is just trying to process it all, pen hovering, clearly wishing he'd called in sick. And right then, Elaine makes her last stand. Insists HOA bylaws override disaster law. She says it, with a straight face. To the cop's body camera. The floodplain guy laughs, a short, sharp bark. Ma'am, that's not how any of this works. The handyman's hand shakes. He drops the chainsaw. Elaine, still not reading the room, declares she's invoking citizens' demolition under HOA authority. She tries to rip off the placard herself. The zip tie whips her visor clean off and sends it sailing into the creek. People are filming, phones everywhere. The officer cuffs her for tampering and obstruction. She's still yelling about her rights, demanding to speak to a supervisor, threatening lawsuits. The handyman asks if the HOA covers legal oopsies. Nobody answers. The landscapers are gone. 3 days later, Cedar Quay meets under a moldy pavilion. Biggest turnout ever. The air is thick. And not just from the broken clubhouse AC. People are fired up. The vote to remove Elaine from the board is 47-3. Even the ducks seem startled. The fines come in: trespassing, unauthorized; alterations, interfering with emergency ops. FEMA sends an itemized bill for emergency inspections. Elaine gets 120 hours of community service, installing reflective address numbers, and sitting through a federal floodplain workshop, no phone allowed, front row. The total, $18,000. When the judge reads the amount, she turns pale. Her lawyer winces. Power gone. Reputation in tatters. She's let out of court, still looking like she can't believe it's over. But here's the thing. My bridge stands, the creek runs on, and people talk. Some folks still argue about property rights, HOAs, and government overreach. Others just want peace. Me? I still walk that bridge every morning. But let's be real. Where do you stand on this whole mess? Did justice win? Or is this just another flavor of small-town madness? Drop your thoughts below. Who's right? Who's wrong? And what would you have done if it was your bridge on the line? I'll tell you. Store, or waving me down at the mailbox just to get the latest update. Some wanted to congratulate me. Others wanted to ask if I was planning to run for the HOA board next. Yeah, right. Can you imagine me running a monthly bake sale? But a surprising number just wanted to vent about their own run-ins with neighborhood authority. You know what I mean? Suddenly, everyone had a story. About a fence too tall, a garden gnome judged too whimsical, or a mailbox painted the wrong shade of white. Elaine, meanwhile, more or less vanished, at least in public. Word was, she sold her house to her nephew and moved across town, which seemed like the best outcome for everyone, honestly. But she left a legacy. A stack of leftover complaint forms, 3 unopened gallons of HOA-approved beige paint, and a neighborhood that suddenly had to figure out how to govern itself without someone constantly threatening citations over wind chimes or mismatched patio furniture. For the first time in years, Cedar Quay actually felt, dare I say, relaxed. Folks started talking to each other more. The next HOA meeting was half cookout, half town hall. The new president, a retired nurse named Ruby, kicked things off by inviting everyone to bring a dish, and instead of fines, she passed out ice cream bars. We even had a kid scavenger hunt on my bridge, which I'm pretty sure made the floodplain coordinator nervous. But he showed up anyway, holding a clipboard and eating a hot dog like he wasn't sure what dimension he'd stepped into. The bridge itself became a kind of mascot. People started calling it the Bell Span. Someone tied a little American flag to the railing, and for the 4th of July, neighbors set up lawn chairs on both sides of the creek, cheering every time a kid ran across. Not gonna lie, it felt good. Even the handyman who almost took it down came by one afternoon, sheepishly handed me a cold lemonade, and said, "No hard feelings." Right. I just laughed and told him, "Hey, you were just following questionable orders." But peace is a funny thing. A few weeks after the dust settled, I noticed a pair of unfamiliar cars cruising the neighborhood, stopping to take photos of various homes, including mine. I thought maybe it was a real estate agent, but then I spotted county plates and realized it was a pair of folks from risk management, here to do a follow-up on critical access notes. Next thing I know, I'm walking my dog, and one of them calls out to ask if I'd be willing to talk about flood preparedness at a county meeting. I nearly choked on my coffee. I ended up agreeing, mostly out of curiosity. The county event was held in a high school gym, rows of metal chairs, that particular smell of old varnish, and distant gym socks. There were firefighters, city engineers, a bunch of folks in khakis and lanyards, and about a dozen homeowners from different neighborhoods, all with their own bridge stories, culvert woes, and, believe it or not, more than one tale of HOA drama that would make yours look tame. When it was my turn, I stood up. Honestly, my hands were shaking a little, and I just told the truth. I talked about the storm, the bridge, and what it felt like to have the place you call home suddenly become the center of some bureaucratic hurricane. I mentioned Elaine, not by name, but as a very motivated neighbor, and got a laugh. But I made my point. Regular folks build things for good reasons, and sometimes those reasons actually end up saving the day. At the end, someone in the back piped up, "So, you gonna build any more bridges?" I grinned and said, "Only if FEMA sends me a placard first." On the drive home, it struck me how fast things can turn. One minute you're just trying to keep your backyard dry. Next minute, you're an accidental folk hero or a cautionary tale, depending on who you ask. But the weirdest part is how the whole neighborhood feels different now. It's like surviving a flood washed away more than just debris. It cleaned out years of old grudges, petty fights, and everyone's general fear of rocking the boat. Now, I know this story could have gone 100 different ways. Maybe, in some other neighborhood, the HOA wins and the bridge comes down. Maybe Elaine keeps her post and folks just keep their heads down, counting the days until retirement. Or maybe, just maybe, somebody else finds the guts to push back because they remember this story and they figure, why not me? So tell me honestly, if you'd been in my shoes, would you have stood your ground or just let them tear it all down to avoid the headache? Have you ever dealt with a little dictator in your own backyard? Go ahead. Share your war stories below, because let's be real, every neighborhood's got at least one. And who knows, maybe the next time the sirens wail and the chainsaws rev, it'll be your turn to stand on the bridge.